Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Life Together video podcast, a podcast where we will be discussing topics as varied as life itself. Life is messy, life is beautiful. Let's talk about it. I'm your host, Eric Henninger, and we are privileged today to have my good friend, Jeremy White, with us.
Hey there.
Thanks for hanging out with us
Yeah,
today.
absolutely.
I've been very excited about this episode.
Me too.
So, Jeremy, also, I just introduced you as my good friend, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Friendship. No, I'm joking. But we will, though. Jeremy was directed the faith-based film Summer Snow, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it was voted as the #1 faith-based film for 2014.
That's right, it was.
That is super exciting.
Yeah, we were really pumped when we saw that.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, right? Well, that'll do.
We're #1. We're #1.
Everybody else stinks. I'm kidding. But seriously. So, cool. So we're going to jump in and talk a little bit about faith, film and culture here in just a second. But I wanted to talk about Summer Snow and just kind of, so we can kind of share with our viewers what that experience was like for you. So, if you can, remember back this far, because like I know it's
going back a little bit now.
Takes a little ways. Yeah,
it
takes
shooting.
a lot to make something happen. Talk to us about like the conception of the project through the completion of the project. What was that like, and what did that look like for you?
Sure. Well, someone once told me that making a film is like running a marathon. And I have come to realize how true that is. And really, it's more like running 10 marathons back to back to back. You just keep going and going. And just when you think it's done, you're like, oh, there's still more. Like, we're actually even still working on the film. We just met with someone in Nashville. We have international distribution for the film. And so there's a few things that we had to do to our music and effects tracks. And so we're still even making tweaks, and this is how many years after we filmed. So it really is a long, drawn-out process. And that's why it's important that whatever you work on, you need to be passionate about the project. Because number one, if you're not passionate about the project, no one else is going to be. And when you hit those tough moments, and every project's going to hit them, whether it's a late night filming, or whether you're in the edit suite and you're like, oh my goodness, this doesn't work, how can I redo this? Or, you're struggling trying to find distribution, or what do I do with the film? You're going to hit those tough moments. And so if you don't have that excitement for your film, to keep carrying you through, and if you're not passionate about this story, no one else is going to be passionate, and the story's going to fall flat. So number one, it's got to be a movie that you personally are excited about.
That makes perfect sense, right? If I don't care about it, why should I expect anybody else to invest any kind of emotional investment to it? I'm good with words today. I'm good with this talking
thing.
How long did the process take from, hey, because I know you and your sister work together a lot on those kinds of things. Hey, we've got an idea to, hey, we have a movie in a theater. How long did that take?
Sure. Well, we started, I guess this would have been in around Christmas 2011 was when we first sat down and came up with this idea for the film and the characters and some of the generic storylines, and then the movie sat for a while, and then my good buddy Eric Henninger came to me and was like, "Hey, let's do a script. Let's write something together." And so you and I sat and reworked the story and did some some workshop stuff with that. Shop work.
Which was bad because I lost my phone.
But the script turned out great.
You'll want to see it.
It was worth it.
Look closely and you can see me without my phone.
So then it went through another totally different pass. Then AFA came and said, hey, do you guys have a movie we'd like to make? This was around Christmas 2012 or so, something around there. Or no.
Wait.
I can't even remember now.
I think that's right. I think it was 2012.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Something in there. It's all running together. There's so many.
What year is it?
Yeah. What year are we now?
It's 2015, right?
A long time ago, in a galaxy far away. Then, Kendra and I took the story that you and I had done and the characters and fleshed a few things out even deeper, and then sent the script to a producer. And he said, great, here's some more changes. We said, okay. We took those changes. We sent it to our casting person. She said, great, let's make some more, this could help some of these characters. We took actors' input. And so the script is constantly changing. But I mean, we're probably 4 years out now from when we first started till today, and we're still doing stuff. So it's
That's
not
crazy.
even done. Now, once things really got rolling, it happened fast. From the script to production was maybe 6 months. But then from the end of production to premieres and being on TV, that was about a 2-year process.
Yeah,
So,
the back end of stuff always takes the
takes
longest.
so much longer.
You put all this effort into the production, and that's the smallest piece to the puzzle, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Everything, even with a short project, we're working on one right now. We've put in more hours on the editing and on the ADR and all these things than we did filming it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, the filming, it's an important part, but it's honestly, and it's the part that probably gets the most, spotlight and the excitement. Oh, they're filming a movie, but it's the thing that takes the shortest amount of time. It really does. I mean, it was a 21-day shoot
Right.
versus 2 years of post-production. I mean, I sat in an edit suite for 2 months just listening to audio pops and trying to smooth out audio here and there, and then
fun.
spent another 2 months color correcting the film. So small details where you just try to enhance the movie as much as possible.
Yeah, and while you were doing that, I was still fielding calls from people from church and from even some of the casts.
Oh wow!
People like, "Hey Eric, it's so and so,
Can I get a copy for my demo reel?
Yeah, when is the film going to be ready?" I'm like, I don't know.
I don't know.
I was only involved in the first 2/3 of the project, not in this last third of it. Well, actually, that ratio is out of proportion. If you look at it as pre-production, production, post-production, 2/3.
The timeline,
but timeline really.
Yeah, the
It-
post-production on a film, especially on a feature, there's so much that goes into it. When you're working with the composer as well and trying to get all that.
Yeah.
And then there's edit upon re-edit upon re-edit upon re-edit. And there are, some big edits where you're like, okay, I think from our initial cut to the final version, we edited maybe 25 minutes out of the film.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah.
a lot that and again, you're just making the story more concise, where you say, you know
Right.
what, we don't need that line. We can trim it down. You know what, we can end the scene earlier. We don't need the person walking in. Let's cut into the scene. And it just makes the pacing so much tighter.
Right. Did you have to cut any babies, like anything that you were really particularly, I really like this, but it really is not working the way I wanted it to? Did you have to cut anything like that, or?
There weren't any scenes that I really was super sad to see go.
Okay.
Probably the only change that we made, this was one that some of our producers said, hey, this is something that it'll help everything, trust us. And people that have worked for Disney that were saying, hey, trust us.
Oh, wow.
The people at Sony were saying, trust us.
What do they know?
Yeah, what has Sony ever done?
Sony, Disney, whatever.
But so at the end of the movie, I'm giving away a few things here, but
Spoiler
alert! Here you go. So if you haven't seen the film, start the podcast off. But
And the shop works. Stop
Right.
it. Stop it right now.
but so the scene when Hallie's in the hospital and she opens her eyes up. I didn't like that shot because I wanted the excitement of you don't know if she's alive or dead until you see her.
Right. And I remember we talked, that was one of our original
we-
ideas, was we wanted it to be a mystery, right?
Right. Did she make
Yeah.
it? Is she alive? What's happened? So you have that emotional rush. But the producers were feeling that, it might be too much of a shifting gears. And they said the audience is going to be too sad if they think she's dead. And so the payoff won't be the same because they're going to be just depressed that you killed their favorite person. So I was like, okay, I can understand that. And we took their advice. And it worked, and the film's done super well. So
Yeah, that's good. Although I would argue that it's good, I think, sometimes to let your audience feel that real deep, hurt, and because that was what the family would have been going through in that scene in the movie, like, oh no, are we going to lose our kid?
Yeah.
And then, oh, she's alive!
Yeah.
I'm so happy! We're crying, we're going through tissues.
I wish you were the producer.
Well, next time.
Well, in the original script, we actually killed her. That was when we first came up with the story, we were like, we're going to kill the little girl! And then people were like, if you kill this little girl...
How to make a faith-based film.
Yeah.
Kill the children.
Kill the children.
Oh my goodness, that's really cool. That's really interesting, and it just all the different people that do have their hands on a project and how it affects. And you've heard it said, there's the movie you write, the movie you shoot, and the movie you edit and actually end up with.
Yeah.
And so ideally they're very similar, but there's like you said from the first
the stories just constantly changing and evolving. And things that you thought were important when you were first writing didn't even make it into the movie. And you spent so much time on a certain scene, and then you come to realize, you know what? This really isn't important. The film is about this. And so it's incredible to see how a story can change.
Right. That's very cool. It's very cool. Let me say this real quick too. Go ahead and click on the link at the bottom of the screen here, and you can go watch the trailer for Summer Snow. And you can also pick the film up. I know it was at Walmart. Is it still at Walmart?
Still at Walmart.
Still at Walmart.
You can order it online from Walmart, or you can go to summersnow.com and you can order it from there as well.
Very
it might
cool.
be summersnowmovie.com.
Yeah, and enter the code Eric is cool, and you'll get it. No, you won't get
an additional 10% on your fees.
They'll charge you money. They'll charge you money. They know what they're doing. Just Eric is cool. Trust me. Okay, great. Now I just with that little funny, hilarious joke. I forgot what I was talking about. Okay, cool. I remember now because it's in my notes. One of the things somebody called me, and I'm super critical about faith-based movies, just because I feel like they can always they should be better than most of the stuff that's out there. They should be of the utmost quality. And so when you sent me a copy of the film to watch, I was like, okay, I've got to completely divorce my mind from the fact that I was involved with this, that I know that I know the directors, that I know so many people that worked on this, and just view it as a film and be as critical of it as I would of any film that I would watch. And I was so happy at the end of the film that I didn't have very much negative, to say about it. And even somebody called and said, look, be honest with me, is it worth spending the $8 to go see this? I said, and I, like, without a hesitation said, absolutely. It is. And so in my opinion, not just to blow sunshine at your face here and whatever the expression is, I think I mixed a couple metaphors there for lots of reasons. But I feel like it is one of the strongest faith-based movies that's out there. And I think a lot of the reason that is because it feels very genuine. And it doesn't feel contrived, and there's not stuff that's just shoehorned in to just so it's like, oh, well, it's a faith-based film, so we got to shove a bunch of stuff in that wasn't originally there. So it has this real authentic, feel to it. How did you arrive at that? Like, what steps did you take to go, we want this to feel as honest and real as possible?
Sure.
What did you do to ensure that
Sure.
stayed true from the script to the screen, even with all the changes?
Well, I can tell you, first of all, I want to make films that point people to the Lord. And so that's the mission that God's put on my heart. And to do that, though, the faith element of a story has to be integral to the story. I think where a lot of faith-based filmmakers have erred is they create a great story and then kind of shove the faith element in, and it just doesn't quite fit.
Right.
And you're like, people don't really talk like that. Or you can take the faith element out, and the story still is fine without the faith element. Or they'll make the faith element so hidden that you don't really see the faith element, and it just becomes a good, morals types of story. It's a Disney movie,
Right.
but you don't really see God moving in the story. And so to me, the best combination is when you've got a story of faith that is so intertwined with the film itself that you can't remove it. The story doesn't survive on its own. It's kind of like the story of Esther. You don't even see God mentioned in the book of Esther, but
Right.
you see God moving throughout the entire story. And
Yeah.
you can't pull God out of the story of Esther and have that story make sense because God's hand is all over that story. And so it was, the book of Esther doesn't even mention God, and our film does, but it doesn't, I don't think they have to necessarily to be faith-based films. But what they need to do is they need to point people to the Lord. People need to move from either A to B or from Y to Z, somewhere along in their faith journey, closer to the Lord. And that faith element has to be integral to the story. Again, it doesn't matter what part of their faith journey they're on, but I just want to see somehow them moving towards the Lord.
See, that's really cool. And you see that in Summer Snow, for sure. And what I like about what you guys did with it is that in order to move them there, you didn't deny the reality of pain and
Yeah.
suffering within life. And the Bible promises us that we will in fact have, in this world
Absolutely.
you'll have trouble. That's a promise. That's a promise. Like even as followers of Christ, not everything feels good. We go through things in life that we struggle with that hurt us, and hopefully we let them push us closer to God. But I think a lot of times in faith-based stories, we kind of sell it like, oh, now Jesus is in the mix, so everything is kind of works itself.
They were
out.
happy or they were sad, things were bad, and then Christ. And sometimes that does happen, but other
Right.
times when Christ comes in, there's still tough things that they're dealing with. He's there
Right.
to comfort you while you go through those things.
Exactly.
But it's not that everything, magically changes and, oh my goodness, I just won $1 million. Thank you.
I prayed for this.
Yeah. In the
Because
film,
I'm praying for that too, and it's not happening.
at the end of Summer Snow, the mom's still dead. She
Yeah.
died at the beginning of the film, and so they're still dealing with that. There's still sorrow and grief and loss that the family has
Right.
to experience. The first film that we did was called Paper Dream, and it's all about this couple that desperately wants to have kids and can't. And the whole film is about them going through this process of trying to adopt, and finally they think it's going to happen and it doesn't work out. And so the question we basically asked in this film is, so what now?
That's good.
When your plans don't come through, your dreams don't happen, what happens? And so basically with that film we said, is God enough for you? Regardless of what you get, or the things that, maybe he'll give you or bring to the table, is God in of himself truly, who he is, enough for you?
That's good. That's that's something that I've been learning over the last couple of years. Is am I enough for you, Eric? In spite of everything that
Yeah.
happens around you, am I enough? And so I love that you brought that into the conversation with even in telling stories, because like you said, life is what it is, and God, when God is a part of our lives, it's not to eliminate the difficult times, but it's to bring peace and joy even in the midst of suffering. I'm getting a little off track here, but there was one time I was going through a tough time, and I was reading through Psalms 23. Because Psalms is great to read if you're struggling, because not only are there some great things in there that are encouraging and hopeful, but it kind of really gives you permission to kind of ask questions and realize that God's big enough to handle them. Because the psalmist is like, God, what's going on down here? Don't you see this? What is So like, oh, good. If David can do it, then I can ask. God's big enough to handle my questions. But as I was reading it, I almost started just to skim through the 23rd Psalm, because I memorized it as a kid. Like, who hasn't? If you've grown up in church, you know Psalm 23, right? And so I was like, Lord, which shall not want, blah, 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 blah. And I got to the part where I was expecting to read, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. And that's how I memorized it when I was in school and in Sunday school and stuff. And so I always, just for my whole life, had assumed that what that meant was that, okay, great, if I'm ever facing death, or like on my deathbed, or something could take my life, I don't have to be afraid because God is with me. But I was reading it in the NIV, and it said, even though you walk through the darkest valley, no death mentioned, the darkest valley, I am with you. And it was like an aha moment for me. And it was like God was saying, this is your dark valley, and I'm not at the end of it waiting for you there going, you can do it.
Yeah.
He's like, I am right
beside you,
knee deep in it with you, trudging through it with you. You don't have to do this by yourself. So and I feel like that's tying it back into Summer Snow. Yeah, that's right. We do see that, even though it's not stated in dialogue or anything like that, but we do see that. We see the joy that comes out of the mourning and out of that grief. And you see, like you said, you see God's hand through the story, even when he's not mentioned directly. You see it, and it's real touching, it's real sincere, and it's real authentic. So thank you for that.
No problem.
How do you respond to that? He just thanked me. Anyway,
Thank you.
I would like to thank my producers. I'd like to. These things are heavy. Okay, so now tying that into kind of what our theme is. I think we touched on some stuff that's really, really good as far as faith, faith, film, and culture. And in our culture, like media and film in particular is super prevalent. we're definitely a media saturated, culture. We love to hear stories. We love to see stories, and which I think is actually kind of in humanity in general. I mean, even Jesus spoke in stories, to people, and so I think stories are a great vehicle to talk about whatever it is you're wanting to talk about. So I think you touched on story. I think that's where I think a lot of my biggest beefs have been with some faith-based films is the stories sometimes feel contrived, even if the production quality is fantastic. Sometimes it's like.
I heard someone once say, they said, if you were to line up the hardest, most important jobs on a film set, he said the first 10 jobs would all be writing. He said that ultimately, it doesn't matter how well lit your movie is, if the mics and all the audio sounds good, if it's edited well.
Yeah.
The most important thing is the story itself. And is the story something that's going to grip people? Because you may have a great message that you want to convey, something deep and powerful, but if your story stinks, the audience doesn't care about your message, and they're bored, and they've already changed the channel. So your story has to be fantastic.
Yeah, I think your vehicle, the quality of the vehicle you're presenting your message in, if it is subpar, your message comes across subpar.
Yeah.
And I talked with somebody who said, well, I would rather watch a film that had a good message, even if it wasn't well written or well shot and all this stuff, as opposed to a movie that's well written but has a message I don't agree with. And I asked him, I was like, why do we have to choose? Like, why should we have to settle for either or? I can either watch something that's really well done but I don't like the message, or I have to watch something that kind of sucks but it's got a good message.
Yeah.
And just, as people of faith, just because we interject our faith into it doesn't make it a good movie quality-wise, And so story is king. Story is paramount. When whether it's, a book, obviously, but in film, too. Like, if the story's not there, it falls flat. But on the flip side, if it is, even if the production around it, you can spot a good story.
Absolutely.
Regardless of what it looks like. You can... If it's
there's something here.
Well, yeah. So, but I think we can have both. It doesn't have to be either or. So there's, and I feel like I was just kind of poo-pooing on like faith-based films, and that's not my thing at all, because I do believe there's certainly a place. I think there's kind of not a discussion necessarily, but if you talk to different people, there's people that are like, well, if we're going to be Christians and we're going to be filmmakers, then the only route for us to take is to make explicitly faith-based films. And I think that there's definitely a wonderful place for that, and we need those things, because they're, especially as parents and stuff, and you've got a kid now too, which is super cool. It makes me feel wicked old, but regardless, there's certain things you don't want. You want to monitor what's going on, and so it's nice to have a film that you can sit down and feel safe watching.
When you have to say, what has God called me to? Because the calling that God has on your life is different than the calling that God has on my life. And so, some people, God has said, hey, I want you to work in the secular environment so that you can be a light in a dark place. And other people, we also need Bible teachers. We can't have everybody just working in a secular environment, because who's going to teach our Sunday schools? And who our pastor is going to be. So we need people that can speak, and raise up the church and stir the church to action.
Yeah.
And we need films that will do the same thing.
Agreed.
So a lot of people have said, it's that film, speaking to the church, that was their goal, was to speak to the church and to stir the church up. So it depends on, what's the purpose of the film? Is it to, where, again, on that journey, is it supposed to move people from A to B, or from, X to Y, or whatever it is?
Right. And I think the misconception of what the purpose of the film isn't from the filmmakers. If you know what you should know who you're writing for. Otherwise, you're gonna miss everybody.
Yeah.
But I think it's the audience that goes, oh well, I like this movie. It espouses my beliefs, so it's gonna reach outside. And sometimes it does, because God promises, when my word goes out, it won't return void. It'll accomplish what I've set it out there to do. But I think the misconception with some of that is, when we're talking to a particular audience, we use a particular language and stuff, and so not everybody outside of that audience understands our the lingo or the language or the story we're trying to tell. And so I think we always need to have a realistic understanding of who our audience is. But God is bigger than that too. So like you said, or I said, one of us said, because we're wicked smart, so it couldn't be either one of us. Even something that's written for Christians specifically still has the ability to connect, with people out here. So I do believe everybody's seeking, whether we realize it or not. We're searching for something inside of us, and until we meet our Creator, we're like, oh, there it is. We don't get it. But so that's why I think even some secular films are imbued with certain, spiritual principles or ideas that are very, Christian at their foundation, whether people realize that or not, because we're always on a quest for the truth, and for God, if that makes sense.
It makes sense.
Cool. Who are we interviewing? Who's talking? It's me. It's not Jeremy.
Jeremy interviewing Eric here. So Eric, tell me.
tell me about. Anyways, yeah, none of that is here. So you were okay. So let's kind of we talked about a lot of stuff. Good night. When I'll start with an anecdote here then to get us into the next thing. I was talking with some people that had taken a class with a guy, I can't remember his name, but he used to write for that 70s show. And if you know anything about the 70s show, it's hilarious, but be very liberal in its sexual politics and just everything in general. But it's funny and it's well done. I mean, it's really well written. It's all that stuff as a sitcom goes. But people would criticize this guy. He was a Christian, went to church and all this stuff, and he took a lot of heat for working at this show. And his response to everybody was, if you had any idea what I keep off the air, you'd be thanking me instead of criticizing me. And so you were talking about having a chance to impact, people. And I think we saw that a little bit on Summer Snow too. Even within the context of a faith-based film, not everybody involved with the project shared the same belief system.
Right.
So did you see anything on there where you had, even beyond the film itself, bigger than the film itself, where you had a chance, or somebody that have had a chance to, just to kind of really develop relationship and
well, I mean, with our actors, we just really connected with them, and some of them have a faith background and some of them don't. But I remember one of our actors, she had Cameron Goodman. She had just come to know the Lord recently, right before the film, and she came on board with this film. I remember as we were leaving, she said, the last couple films I've been trying to be a light and to encourage people and point people to the Lord, but I feel that this film has pointed me towards the Lord. Nice. And I've been ministered to because I've been a part of this film. And so many different people said, the set, it's just different. It feels different. And so that's the atmosphere that I want to set, on the projects that I'm working on, where people say, what's different about this? Things are different. I've heard with other Christian films too, that like with the Kendricks, people love working with them because they treat people right. And so many people in Hollywood are treated terribly.
Right.
And so when someone here is appreciative, and when they're thanking them, and when they're not getting yelled at and cussed at because they made a mistake, instead they're like, hey, that's okay, just let's make sure we get it right the next time or whatever. I mean, and people are like, whoa,
I didn't get cussed out.
Wow, I still have my job.
Right.
And people, what happens is people want to work in that environment, and so they say, what's different about these filmmakers? God's the difference.
Yeah.
These are the kinds of people that I want to be around. These are the kind of people that I want to be. And then they realize, what is it that's drawing? It's not you. It's not, Stephen Kendricks or Alex Kendrick. It's the Lord that's drawing people in.
Absolutely. And that he promises to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And by being, the people he's called us to be, we're lifting him up. And he promised, if I'm lifted up, I'll draw people to me. So I think that's cool, because I think even beyond the impact that a movie can have, I think there's a huge impact just in those relationships that we build with other people. And so that's cool. That's cool that people are like, there's something different about here. People aren't, swearing at us all the time or threatening to fire us and whatever. That's huge. And that's, even in some of the projects that I work on, that's my goal. If everybody leaves here and they had a great time and they feel, important and cared about and want to come back, I feel like we've succeeded. Even if the movie's terrible, I feel like we've succeeded.
Yeah.
On a certain
And it's just treating
level.
people right. It's doing things the right way. If you're going to have, let's say you're doing an indie film and you're, step one of your filmmaking career.
Like an indie film about aliens.
Let's say that. But you know what? If you're going to have people there all day, feed them.
Right, just little common sense things.
But so many people try to cut corners. Thank you everybody for being here 12 hours. You know, when people are hungry, they're tired. They just volunteered all day for you. Little things like that, you know, or you write a thank you card to them. You know, you feed them and you write a note. Hey, thank you so much. You know,
For being here,
yeah, you send that a week later. That's going to mean so much to them. That one little card, you know, you spent, you know, I don't even know how much a stamp is. 50 cents on a stamp.
It goes up every so often.
It does. Buy a Forever stamp.
Yeah, for real.
Just load up now. And, you know, when you send that out or whatever small little gestures that you can do go a long, long way. And that's not just with film. That's with anything that you're doing. Whether, you know, it's a project like this, or you're trying to get volunteers to help with a church project or some event. You know, when you're just treating people right, people want to come back and help.
Right. That's good. You know, and certainly as Christians, that, you know, that should be our driving force, is love. Love people, invest in their lives. But it also comes with a little bit of common sense, I think, too, right? Like, okay, even if I'm not a Christian, common sense should dictate that if I want people to work with me,
I should be nice to them.
Treat them nicely.
Yeah.
So if you're out there and you want to make a film, feeding people is a huge way you can show them that they're important. But be encouraging, you know, be a positive influence in their life,
Being courteous of their time, too, because I've seen projects where, hey, we need you there. I remember a project one time that I showed, it wasn't yours, so you're good. They said, hey, we need you there at 6 a.m. And so I showed up at 6 a.m. and they didn't need me till like 2. And I sat around for 8 hours doing nothing. You know what? You think I'm going to help that person on a project in the future? Absolutely not. Yeah. I sat around for 8 hours.
It's ridiculous.
They weren't, you know, respecting my time. So, you know, if you're planned and prepared and organized, things are going to go smooth. Everybody's going to enjoy it more. It's just going to be a better project.
That happened to me once, too. And then when you're ready to shoot, you're kind of bitter.
Yeah.
Or I was. Like, I've been here all morning. I was up at 4. I could have slept till like at least 8.
Thanks for not being prepared.
Yeah. Thank you for that, everybody. Hey, now that everybody's here, let's decide how we're going to shoot this. No! You should know!
We're going to finish writing some scenes. We'll be right back.
Yeah, right. I'm your talent. Like, I need to be working now. But yeah, that's good. And just such a small thing that ends up being a huge thing. It makes a huge difference in how people leave your set feeling, and I think it affects the film too. I really think the atmosphere on set.
Well, people feel discouraged when you're like, "Why aren't we filming? Why have we been here 4 hours, 5 hours, and we haven't started, you know, filming anything?"
Right? Is there a camera here at all?
Yeah. Who's running this ship?
Exactly.
So it can be frustrating.
Exactly. That's good. That's good stuff, Jeremy. That's really good stuff. Moving on then. That's good. So anyway, culture at large.
Hate it.
No. Right? Yeah. Fair enough. It's stupid. Don't engage it. I'm just kidding. I feel like one of the things in both of us having, you know, gone to a Christian university, it's a lot of times, you know, we hear this like impact culture, you know, or impact the world, change the world, and over the last few years, I've thought a lot about that. You know, what is my role, regardless of what kind of films I'm making? What is my role in culture? And I heard somebody share a devotional once, and they said, our purpose in a nutshell as Christians is found in Micah 6:8. What is good, O man, and what does God require of you? To do justice, to love mercy, and walk humbly with God. And so I think that as we do that, the other stuff starts to fall into place. What do you think about that? What is our role as people of faith in film, or not even just in film, but in engaging culture, in what we consume media wise and what we produce media wise?
Sure. Well, I'd say first of all, culture is all around us. You can't. You know, a lot of people have just tried to stiff arm. I'm just not going to be a part of anything. You know, we're not going to have cell phones or the internet at our house or this or this or this. I mean, culture's like where you live and what you do. And so you need to be a part of, you can't just say we're just, you know, shunning all culture around us.
Right.
You live there. So if you are going to be alive, you are going to be influenced by culture. And so the question is, are you going to be influencing culture? Are you going to be one of the ones that is changing things, or are you being changed by stuff? And there's a lot of different ways to reach people and to touch people. There's not one specific, this is what you need to do. But I think that verse really does sum it up great. And I think that's a really good goal for us in this world, to change it. Look at what the Lord's required of you. And that verse really just lays it all right out there.
Yeah, I think when that's happening, we will naturally, not naturally in and of ourselves, but because we're seeking to walk with God, that we love people, we treat them
Those
with
things
respect.
are naturally going to be coming out of you.
Yeah, and that makes an impact. I think even more than any film I could make, not that doesn't have any kind of impact, whether it's to minister, to encourage, or to entertain, whatever it is. The bigger impact, I think, comes in our relationship with people. And if we're walking humbly, then that comes out even in how we write our stuff. It comes out in how we treat people on our sets. And I think that's
Well, and when you're really pouring in, I mean, look at Jesus. There were 12 people that he said, I'm really going to pour into these guys.
Right.
And so, you don't necessarily have to, be preaching to 10,000 people to be changing the world. Jesus said, Jesus did preach to lots of people, but he also said, I'm going to focus on these 12 and I'm going to pour into them. And I'm going to spend so much time with these people to build them up, to encourage them, to point them to the Lord, so that when things get tough, they are not going to be shaken.
except for that one guy.
Except for the one guy. So.
Thanks, Obama. Just kidding. The opinions expressed on this podcast are not Eric's.
Are not.
What? Okay, I think that's a safe joke, right?
Yeah,
safe
sure.
Joke. Thanks, Obama. Yeah, okay.
So, anyways, ministry looks different all across the world. To try to fit every ministry or every type of calling into a box. Again, the calling God has for you is different than the calling he has for me. And it's different than the person over here. Each one of us have different things. And, one person, maybe it is that God's wanting to reach out to this one lone person in this house. And that's what God's like, man, I want you to keep reaching out. Other people, God may say, you know what, I want you to reach to this group over here or this over here. And when you disengage from culture, you're putting yourself in a box. And basically you're just saying, you're trying to build up walls instead of, being, on the offensive and saying, let's take stuff, let's take back the kingdom. Or let's bring back people to the Lord.
Right, I think that's good. And I feel like that's kind of happened a lot in the church in general, as we've kind of sequestered ourselves for so long that we've kind of lost a lot of touch with what's happening in not the world around us, but like in culture around us. And I think when we do that, we lose touch with how people perceive people in the church. And so how can we communicate with them if we don't understand their perspective and their worldview? There's a song long ago by an artist named Jeff Moore, because Jeff's watching. But it was talking about, there's a line that says, he's afraid the world's rubbing off on him, but all this time I thought we should be rubbing off on them. And so I feel like that's kind of happened a lot. We've been so afraid of being in the world because we didn't want to be of the world, like the Bible says, that we've gone ahead and said, well, then let's just not be in it at all. We'll create our own little thing. And I think that hurts. That hurts our communities, and it hurts our society at large if we're to be the ones that are loving people, which it doesn't even relate directly to film. I think it crosses over to that. But what you said was good. We'll move on. That's good stuff. Lots of good stuff.
A lot of good stuff.
Anytime we chat, we're wicked smart.
That's right.
We solve all the world's problems.
Next podcast, world hunger will be solved.
That's right. We'll bring Jeremy back on a regular basis to solve all the problems in the world. Non-controversial things. I'm not gonna go anywhere.
It's too dangerous.
But we might get a lot of hits. But,
wow.
I'll put it in the title. Okay, great. Yes, I said that I like summer snow. Wow, we talked about everything and then some. Cool. Let me say this to what you said about knowing your calling. I think that's so important. And I think it's easy to look at somebody like, look at you doing what you've done with Summer Snow, and that's what God has called you to do, and go, that's what I want to do. But let's seek God on that. What does God want me to do? Is that the vehicle He wants me to use with my abilities, or is it over here? I think if you don't know, I think if we move in a direction, it's easier for Him to redirect us if we're, at least have some forward motion and stuff. But so that's a really, I think that might be one of my favorite points, that we've done, because I think we make assumptions. Well, I'm a Christian, I want to make films, therefore
I'm going
to make Christian films in that specific context.
Yeah.
And sometimes,
well, I mean, look at the Bible. You know what? If you read it and we're like, oh, Noah built an ark, I need to get going.
Right.
God hasn't called you to build an ark.
Right.
Abraham, God said to leave your family. I'm leaving everything and going to a different country. God didn't call other people to leave their country. He said, stay there and change the culture.
Right.
Other people, go do this. All these different stories. David, I want you to go kill the giant. God may not want me to go kill that person over there.
Right.
And so...
probably not.
Probably not.
So the views expressed on this podcast are not necessarily those of the producing company. But yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
It doesn't... Again, each calling is different. What has God called you to do? Now, there are things that are universally true. There are things that God's called everybody to do. And you could look through, God wants us, to exhibit all the fruits of the Spirit. God wants us to be loving and kind and generous, and you can go through all different things. But, so there are some things that are universally true, but specific callings are different.
Yeah.
And so, you just need to see, what is it that God's called me to do?
So good, Jeremy. I'm glad that you brought that into the mix, because that is so important. Aside from that, what advice would you give to aspiring filmmakers out there that are wanting, maybe they're dabbling in it, or they want to but they haven't done it, at any level of wanting to get started? What would you say to them if they're thinking about making film?
Sure. Well, I'd say first of all, check your motives. What's the reason that you're wanting to make a film? Is it because you want to become big and famous? Or
yes.
is it is it because you're passionate about the story and you want to make sure the story gets told? Because if it's you want to get big and famous, you know what? It's not going to happen. It might happen, but it's not going to happen quick, and it's a lot of hard work that goes into a project.
Get something with more depth driving you.
Absolutely.
Because that's kind of an empty pursuit, is it, in and of itself?
Yeah. So I'd say, first of all, check your motives and see, what's my reason for wanting to do this. You need to pray through a whole project from start to finish, as you're writing, as you're shooting, as you're editing, the whole thing. Because if God is in something, there's no telling what. I mean, I was a children's pastor, and I got the opportunity to make, this huge movie that now has international distribution. A children's pastor. I wouldn't tell anybody, hey, if you want to be a movie maker, follow my path, because this is how it works. Like, I've never heard that God called a kids pastor to make a movie. But that's what God did for me. And it was because God was in it. So when God is guiding your life, there's literally no telling what all can happen. Then I would say when if you do feel, okay, God's wanting me to make a movie, I've got the right motives because this is a story that I feel can change people. Then the next thing I would do is get input from people who are better than you.
Yes.
Not from like your buddy or
your mom.
Your mom or cousin or someone who's just going to be like, oh, this was great. Get it from people who will truly critique you and will tell you to your face that it's not good, because that's what you need to hear. And if your script isn't good, if your story's not ready, don't spend the time. It's a lot easier to fix something in the script stage than in production, and a lot easier than in post-production.
That is so true.
So fix your problems, get the story great, then spend a lot more time than you would ever imagine in pre-production. Because the more time you spend in pre-production, the better your production is going to be, and a lot better your post-production is going to be. If you're thinking through things like, how am I going to hear this? Are we actually going to record audio? If so, I probably need to put a mic near the person speaking rather than on my camera 25 feet away.
I'm going to write that down.
That's a good one. And
very important.
and then you've got to think through, okay, how can I hide the mic so that it's not seen, so you're not, or am I going to try to do a boom pole? Well, do we have the boom pole? Well, what do we need to do to get it? Oh, well, we got to order one. Oh, well, we're hoping to shoot, this weekend. Well, we can't get it in time. Oh, you should have done your pre-production. You're
Right.
not. So, there's all those things you've got. There's a lot of work. You can't just. One of the things that I've always said is excellence doesn't happen by accident.
That's good.
And you can't just anything in artwork, in film, in music, in whatever. If you're building a house, you don't just accidentally. Oh my goodness, this is. You might have a couple small little happy accidents, small stuff,
Right.
but it's not going to be. Oh my goodness, I accidentally built this beautiful house,
And it's structurally
and
sound.
it's structurally sound, and people love it. Oh my goodness, I accidentally made this awesome movie that has international distribution and has been seen by millions of people. Oh my goodness, I accidentally made this masterpiece work of art that's hanging in galleries.
Yeah.
No, you've got to have a plan, and that plan takes preparation. So if you just jump into it, and kind of, let's make a movie, it's going to be a disaster.
Yeah.
You really need to think through. So again, lean on people, show them your plan, show them your script, and then take the hard advice. And then even show them once you're done with the film. And it's tough because a film's your baby. You're like, here it is. What do you think? I hate it. What? I hate what, and then the person's like,
I'm an artist.
I'm an artist. You don't understand what I'm trying to do here. No, this is great. You know what? It might be that your baby's ugly, and you need to fix some stuff.
Right.
So
That's so true. That is
you
very
can't be
true.
offended by criticism.
Yeah, if you're going to ask for it, be ready to receive even the negative stuff, because I think we learn more from the negative. I mean, hopefully it's constructive criticism, but that's where we really learn, I think, and we really grow.
And I'm not going to, like, if someone says, what'd you think of the film? I'm not going to give them the harsh criticism unless they're really wanting to see it.
Right.
If you see a friend that posts a video on, Facebook, I don't think, and they're just like, here's my latest video. Unless they're asking for the criticism, don't give it to them.
Right.
Because
Unwanted
criticism is not going to help anybody.
Right.
But if they specifically seek you out, Eric, would you watch this? Let me know how I can do things better. Now you got a door to be able to speak into their life.
Right. I think that's super important. Don't be afraid to ask for it, but make sure you're asking people that are going to be honest with you. I always ask people, if they ask me to read a script or watch a film and give me their opinion, I'm like, what exactly are you wanting from me? Do you want me to nitpick it to death? Or do you want to know whether I thought it works generally or doesn't work in general? And one of the things, I had Josiah Stendhal on a couple weeks ago, and one of the things that I love about that kid is that he's done all of those things. I know he sent his first script, For Every Man's Price, to you.
Yeah.
He sent it to me, and he incorporated a lot of what we said. And so even though he's talented, and I would even say talented enough to not have to talk to you or myself.
Or at least you.
Well, at least me, right? He really needs to hear me.
Josiah, you're awesome.
But to go, okay, I'm going to surround myself with people that have done a little bit more of this than I have and have some experience. And then I'm going to apply some of that to my artistic vision. And so he's 14 years old, and his...
Well, you're going to get better.
Yeah.
I got better. Summer Snow, again, we had finished the film, we had edited it together, and I'm like, I just made my first feature film, and we showed it to some people, and they were like, you need to edit this a lot because it's really bad. And you're like, what? What do you mean?
But it's awesome.
And it's painful. But then as they started making the edits, and as we started trimming things down, it kept getting better and better. And I was like, wow, they're right. That makes that's really, really good. And they saw stuff that I couldn't see because I was so close to the project.
Yes.
I can't cut this out because this won't make sense. It doesn't matter if that makes sense. Cut it out. It's a bad scene.
It's terrible.
It's a terrible scene. And so, or you can trim dialogue in so many different ways that you think things have to be a certain way until someone else comes in and says, it doesn't have to be that. You can do this.
Yeah. It's good. Yeah. That's true. So I think what's the irony of criticism is, in my experience, I feel like artists can be the most sensitive people. So make sure that you're at a place where you're ready to hear somebody tell you that your baby's ugly, if you need to. Because if you've asked them for that, you need to be receptive of that and go, okay, why is it ugly? What can we do to fix it? If your actual baby's ugly, there's not a thing you can do.
Nothing you can do.
You just love that kid. But yeah, the metaphor, baby, right? Like, I mean, what can we do to fix it?
Yeah.
And be ready to listen and to do it. And I think a lot of like art in the church suffers because people are afraid to give good, solid, constructive.
Well, and
criticism.
sometimes the church doesn't want to ask for the criticism.
Right. Well, that's also true.
And
yeah.
so they're afraid to say, "What did you think of our church production? What did you think of this or that we had right in the lobby?" Yeah. And so if you're not willing to receive that criticism, maybe the arts aren't the best spot for you.
Right. Fair enough. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Cool. Anything else you'd like to share? I've loved our conversation.
Man, this has been fun. I just appreciate you having me on here.
Geez, my pleasure.
Yeah, no, I had a really good time.
Good. I'm glad you were in town.
And you can just write that check out to me anytime you want. So.
Oh yeah, that's fine. What amount did we agree on?
$2 billion.
Oh, holy crap. Okay, well, a couple charities are going to have to take a hit this month.
Those children don't need to eat.
Yeah, they're good. Yeah, they're good. Well, I think we covered everything that we wanted to talk about, and then some, which is good. This is probably the longest podcast.
Awesome. Woohoo!
That's
Setting
right.
records!
We went in with that check is in the mail,
Yeah.
man. You win the award for because it's all you that talks.
Eat your heart out, Deb Ty. I beat you.
That's right. Thought you talked a lot. Not these guys talk more.
3-part podcast.
That's right. We have to release it in segments. Episodes. What episode is this? 5. Episode 5.25. Episode 5.
The prequel.
That's right. We'll do it non-linear, like
Yeah,
a Quentin
there you
Tarantino film, and then or not like all
What's
of his films are
happening?
like.
What are they talking about?
Yeah, I don't understand. It'll be great, and then you'll have to use your brains to figure it out. Well, cool. Well, Jeremy, again, thank you so
problem.
much
It's been
for hanging
fun.
out with me. It's been great to have you in. So, guys, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. Give us some feedback. Give us some topics you'd like to hear us discuss. Next week, we're going to be talking we'll have another artist spotlight with Beyond the Constellations. So you'll want to tune into that and support local artists. Until then, I am Eric, reminding you that life is too short to not pursue the things that you're passionate about. Thanks so much.